Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, creators, and disruptors who are changing the way that business happens in cities like St. Louis, Missouri, and Miami, Florida. You know, we launched this podcast in partnership with Venture Cafe Miami and Venture Cafe St. Louis 2 years ago. And in that time, we've been able to launch 120 episodes featuring some really amazing people who really are changing the way that business happens by breaking through the status quo of what we call business as usual, by creating greater creativity, more community, more diverse cultures, more inclusivity and equity. So 2 years, 120 episodes, and we're just getting started. This episode, and over the next several weeks, we're going to be highlighting our top 20 episodes of all time. At number 20 is episode number 8. This one features Rodney Bullard, who is the VP of Community Affairs at Chick-fil-A. In this episode, he talks about knowing your superpower and using it to help others. Check it out.
How does one cross whatever divide is there between people to connect and understand the people around you?
Yeah. So I think that's a great question. I think the first way is to be a friend and to be intentional about being a friend. We do come in contact with people who are different, and to not allow anything that is political or anything that is in some way different from a racial standpoint or ethnic standpoint or a business economic standpoint to divide us.
Sometimes it takes a community.
Yes, sir, it does. In the book, I talk about 9 C's, and really I dissect the anatomy of a hero. And it's a guidebook on how to be a hero. And we start with calling, and I think that conviction and calling are so important. And all the C's are intertwined. And so our conviction is when we see something in the world and we know, you know what, that's just not right. That tears at my heart. That makes me sad, that makes me ill. But calling is then answering that pain, that discomfort, and doing something about it. And the book talks about that. And I think those are important starting places for a hero.
A lot of times it's during childhood when we're shaped, for the better or for the worse.
That's right. That's right.
And so for those people out there that was shaped for the worst, that have those memories that they go back to where the teacher said, you aren't good enough.
Yes.
What kind of encouragement would you give those people?
One of your superpowers is your confidence, your belief in yourself. And people will tell you that you can't do something. People will tell you that you are not going to amount to much. People will have all sorts of conditions and expectations that they put on you that are wrong. And we have to be very careful from a personal standpoint to be strong enough, to be confident enough, and one of the C's is confidence, to say, I know who I am. I know my strength, I know my superpower, and even more so, I'm humble enough to use that in the benefit of someone else, because that's why I was put here on this earth, to do that, to help someone else. And so I do believe that we have to be courageous and confident.
So does everybody have the same superpowers, or are there some common?
I think that's a great question, my friend. I think that there are definitely common superpowers, but, nobody has the same abilities. Nobody has the same experiences. Everybody has something unique to give, and that's why everybody can be a hero. Dr. King said, greatness is not found in subject-verb agreement. It's not found in your title or your job, but we all can be great because we all can serve. And at times, I think that we hear that and that sounds trite, but it's not trite. We have to get past that because we do have to give back. And even more so when we think about our own personal lives, we want somebody to be our hero. We appreciate it when we had that opportunity, when we had that experience, when we were recognized, when someone talked to us and in a sea of people, no one may have been paying attention, but someone paid attention. That's important.
So what's the world look like when masses, when let's just say the majority of people, the greater vision for Heroes Wanted is to see heroes manifest?
Absolutely.
So what happens when that starts to happen? What's the world look like?
Well, I think we have true community. I think that we move past just social media, which I think is community unto itself, so I don't discount that. But I think we have true community, and I think we're a happier place. And I truly believe that we often see heroes in the news, and we aggrandize heroes in such a way that heroes have capes and they fly through the air, and they're singular beings. They are one person who has a superpower, who is ultra or uber wealthy. But I don't believe that's how we get there. I believe we get there by the masses saving the masses, and each one doing their part. Much more powerful than waiting on Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So what's stopping everyone from their superpowers? What's stopping that vision from happening?
I think what's stopping folks is that, just like anything else, it has to be called out. People have to be encouraged. People have to know, and you have to be reminded. The most powerful lesson of any book isn't to teach you a new lesson, but to remind you of a lesson that you already knew, that you already recognized to be true. And I think most people in their heart recognize this lesson to be true. And so it's just a matter of saying, hey, this is the truth. And let's get to doing it. Let's be about the truth.
All right, at number 19 is episode number 71 with David Karandish. He's a serial entrepreneur, currently the founder of Jane.ai. He's been very successful in his career. And in this clip, he talks about understanding and learning from your past failures and applying those to new ventures. Check it out.
It's a lot easier to fail when the stakes are low. So, I don't know if all my kids or any of my kids are going to want to be entrepreneurs, but if they do want to be entrepreneurs, I'd love them to do it before they graduate college and to try that out in high school or in college than after, because the stakes are a lot lower at that time. People are more willing to help you. Your friends will join you for pizza instead of real salaries and things like that. You'll work for pizza instead of real salaries. And so I think there's a resilience that you can build up if you've learned how to fail when you haven't put it all out on the line. Then when you do get a chance to put it all out on the line, you've kind of built up that mental muscle, and like, hey, here are the things that worked, here are the things that haven't worked. I'd say the second thing that I really noticed was that even in the biggest failures, we were able to leverage a lot of what we learned into that kind of next biggest poker table in terms of the next thing we were going to work on. And so I don't mind if you fail at something, but if you can fail at something and have a transferable piece of knowledge out of it that you can go take with you to your next gig, that'll help that next thing go better. I think that's a different type of failure. It's a transferable failure.
Then there's the big payoff, right? After all those years of hard work, and then was there like time off? Was there like just getting right back into it on the next project? Had you already been thinking through like your next mission, or like what's that look like for somebody that gets acquired or sells, that sort of thing? What goes through your head then?
I had this long laundry list of ideas. So sometimes when you're in a particular field or a particular job or a particular market, you're so accustomed to seeing things as they are each day. When you get out of that environment, you get this just tsunami of ideas that came in. So I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, and got this long list, and some of them were more ridiculous, and some of them were even more ridiculous than that. But when I looked at it, I said, I want to do something where I have the potential to do this for another 10 years plus. And therefore, it's going to be really important that I pick something that I can really believe in and get behind. And so I heeded some advice that I had heard from Jeff Bezos, not directly, but from an article or something. And he did kind of one of those magic quadrant 4 boxes where they were asking him early on, they said, Jeff, why'd you start Amazon? And he basically said, my synopsis here is, he said, if he starts Amazon and e-commerce takes off, then, he's got a good chance of being successful. If he doesn't start Amazon and e-commerce doesn't take off, well, it's kind of a null case. If he starts it and Amazon and e-commerce fails as a category, he's going to learn a lot. He's going to get some bruises and bumps, but there's probably some transferable learnings to his next gig. But if he he doesn't start Amazon, and this e-commerce thing takes off and does what he thought it would, he would regret it the rest of his life. And so very similarly, when I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, I wanted to look at what kind of technology was going to have a massive impact on the way we work. And I looked at artificial intelligence and the rise of Siri and Alexa, and I thought, for my next gig, I want to do something in this AI space. And I knew that if I didn't do an artificial intelligence startup next, I would regret it the rest of my life. So that's how I picked.
At number 18, we have Amanda Pizarro of the Salty Donut, which opened its first location in the neighborhood of Wynwood in Miami. And in this clip, she talks about really knowing and understanding your brand before you jump in and learning how to push through doubts. Check it out.
How does someone get started in what you're doing?
So I would say start with like the fun stuff, because that'll keep you motivated. So the name and the logo and all of that. And then, well, even before that, start to see what's missing in your industry. So I just said, what's missing in Miami? I'm gonna give it to Miami. Then came the brand, and then the logo, whatever. And then from there, before building a business plan, I had to gather as much information as possible, because I didn't know if selling a donut was gonna be profitable at all, or even like a business that could work in Miami. So that's when I traveled to all the major cities, and I sat at all the donut shops and I researched, because you can't just Google like donut shop information, how to open a donut shop. It doesn't exist. So I would say, unrelated to donuts, gather information as much as you can, even if it's not, like, let's say you wanted to open something specific to Miami that doesn't exist. Who cares if your research is not in Miami? At least you have something to base your idea off of. And then from there, business plan. There's actually a cool website that helps you build a business plan by just typing some information in it, which is what we used, because then it ended up being a 60-pager. Obviously, get money. But between all of that, I think a lot of discipline, right? So a lot of people just go quick to I want to be an entrepreneur, and so I'm just going to launch this business. But they don't have their whole branding. Who are you serving? What are you serving? What is your price point? Or if you're not a good, something else. Because if you look at what our logo first looked like when we started, it was ugly. And our ideas were really bad and just really not polished. And I think because we just spent so much time revisiting it, are we in love with it? Because if we're not in love with it, a customer's not going to be in love with it. And just from there, just discipline from start to finish what my brand is. Because even before we launched, building that brand from start to finish, I'm able to answer every single question that anybody would ask me, even without being open. So it's I know my brand like the back of my hand. Yeah. What would I do in this situation, that situation, anything? Because I have it from start to finish, not just I just popped it out of nowhere.
Yeah. So is there a big lesson you feel like you've had to learn, that if I was an entrepreneur, you'd want them to avoid this big pitfall that you've learned from your process?
When we first started the Salty, it was very frustrating because I didn't know what I was doing, right? I never had a business before that I started on my own. And then it was, so every obstacle that came, I was like, that's it. I'm not going to do it anymore. But I started realizing that once I pushed through those obstacles, which was where I was basically teaching myself, I was learning so much along the way that now it sounds cheesy and almost unbelievable. But any obstacle that comes my way, I analyze it now. And I'm like, okay, well, obviously this is showing up for a reason. This is showing up because I need to fix something or I can improve something. And I just take advantage of that. Talk to my team, get a lot of group thinking, and then, exploit or whatever, then work from there.
That's a good insight, because I feel like in business, a lot of times you come up against an obstacle and you think, well, I shouldn't be doing this. I can't handle this, or I'm not good enough for this part. But really, it's just to grow you, because you've got levels to push through.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, some people aren't lucky enough to have a mentor, so they're really just by themselves. I have an awesome team at the Salty between our management and my husband, but a lot of times people are on their own, and that's where they're like, you know what, this was a dumb idea, and they just give up. But if I could have easily done that, because there were hundreds of times that I actually said that out loud, but now it's kind of woo, I got chills, because I just put out donuts here to everybody, and it was gone in seconds. And it's crazy to think 2 years ago I was sitting in my apartment wait, is this even a good idea? What am I doing? So it just shows push through, and as long as you have all the data to back up your idea, don't have a dumb idea, but just push through and believe in yourself.
Thank you for tuning in to Innovation City. I hope you've enjoyed these first 3 in our top 20 of all time. Next week, we'll pick it right back up. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. And big thanks to Venture Cafe Miami and Venture Cafe St. Louis for partnering with us on this journey. We'll see you next week.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams